train standing by. Oh my. It is time to start our first game, not the indie dream game, but a game that we can start and finish this month. So first, we need to pick up a tool to make our game. But which one should we pick? If we pick the wrong one, our development cycle will go over time. There are many that can fit our needs, like Unity, Unreal 3D, GameMaker, Godot, and there are quite many more. But there are a few things we need to consider before we pick one. We will not target 3D games for now. Making a 3D game takes a lot more effort than a 2D game. Given that we have a very limited time, our best option is to go to 2 dimensions. So let's see each option. First, let's check Unity. There are a lot of games developed with it. I have used it for some projects, but I feel there is a lack of support for 2D games. It is bloated with a lot of functionality that I don't need, and a lot of times I had to find a tool to make it work the way I wanted. Besides that, I don't have an income to pay for the license, which can be quite expensive if you just start. Well, you can avoid paying it if you do not hit the minimum threshold, but you will have to show their logo in the splash screen, which is something I don't want to do. Next is Unreal 3D engine, which I feel is overkill for the projects I'm planning. Besides, I like to do the programming. I don't feel so comfortable with C only. I prefer C# for easy of use, and I don't like the visual scripting language that Unreal has. There is also a 5% royalty cost when a game passes $3,000 revenue per quarter. There is a marketplace which is good, but for the kind of projects I'm targeting, this tool is too much for me. Next is Godot. It seems to be quite good, with a lot of functionality, and a wide support for many platforms. It also supports C# and other languages, but its main scripting language, which is Godot scripting language. Learning a language that will only work for Godot will not help me in the future, especially if I want to move to other platforms. Still, Godot engine is something I would like to consider in the future. Since it's free, no license fees, no revenue sharing fees, there are some good capabilities but still lacks in many other areas. Next, GameMaker. It is intuitive and user-friendly interface, which makes it easy for beginners to start creating games. It also has a wide range of built-in functions for game development, such as physics, collision detection, and input handling, which can save a lot of development time. It has a drag-and-drop interface and a built-in scripting language called GameMaker language, or GML, which is a proprietary language which I don't like. It limits its potential and ways to simplify the development process in the long term. Besides that, you have to pay a monthly subscription fee. Since I am starting, this doesn't make any sense to me. Pygame, or Python game. It is built on top of the simple direct media layer, or SDL library, and provides a simple, easy-to-use API for creating games. Pygame is open source, has a large community of developers who have created tutorials and documentation. It supports a wide range of platforms including Windows, Mac and Linux, making it a good option for creating cross-platform games. It has built-in support for many common game development features such as 2D graphics, sound and music, input handling, and collision detection. Simple Direct Media Layer (SDL) is a cross-platform software development library designed to provide low-level access to audio, keyboard and mouse, and display functions. It's written in C and can be used with multiple programming languages, including C, C++, and Python. Now, here is the problem. SDL is a relatively low-level library, so you will need to write more code to achieve the same functionality compared to using a high-level game engine. It also lacks advanced features like physics, scripting, and some 3D capabilities, which are commonly found in other game development frameworks and engines. So it is good for 2D development, which is what we target, but lacks many advanced features, and Python is quite slow compared to C++, so performance will be an issue. Distribution of games in Python may be difficult, so it can be good for simple games only. So here is what I have been using for the past 12 years, XNA framework, and now Monogame. I developed all my previous games in C# using Microsoft XNA framework, which I feel gives a lot of freedom from developer perspective. A few years ago, I moved my code to Monogame, which is an open source framework. It is free, no royalties, and it is supported in many platforms. It has quite good support for all the things that I need. And I can use C#. That means I can use a lot of code already available that can help me develop faster. So for now, my best option is to start in Monogame. But that doesn't mean that my videos will not work for you. I'm not going to target language specifics, but game specifics and business specific topics. My first game will be released for free, since I do not have any supporters yet, and I want to test the download and install process in someone else's computer. I want to make the process as easy as possible, so this will be the first game. Also, I want to make sure logs are generated properly and provide support once released. Once everything is tested, I can start working in more complex games. So let's start our first game. What should we make in about 1 to 2 weeks time frame? Let's think about the history of computer games, and one of the first games made was Space War, released in 1962. It is a space combat game, so we will make something like that, but we will adapt it for today's standards. I will change the multiplayer part for single player, and instead of being 1 versus 1, I will do 1 versus many, and as many as I can. So this will be a bullet hell game. These kind of games are very common now, with the player creating the bullet hell killing enemies, and at the same time upgrading the player very quickly to survive the never-ending waves of enemies. It seems quite simple to do, but it's not quite easy to finish fast. There are quite many things that needs to be implemented, like the shop, upgrades, unlockables. Besides having many different unit types to kill, there should be also a wide variety of weapons to choose from and upgrade during the gameplay. So this is our quick draft of a ship, and I developed a few more types for unlockables. Since enemies will not shoot at you, I thought the best option is to change the enemies to bugs. Yes, space bugs. Survive the wave of space bugs trying to destroy you. The gameplay will happen in space, but I do not like those games that limit the gameplay area to the screen only. It should be big enough, but I want the player to be close to the center of the game space. So as a design decision, I will add something in the middle, and it will pop upgrades from time to time. So the player has incentive to return to the center of the map instead of flying far in one direction. The main reason for that is that the position in space will use a float number for X and Y position, so it can use up to 7 numbers to describe the location in space. If the space is larger than that, it means I need to use a bigger number, and that will use more memory and become slower, and I need to limit how far the player can be from the center of the game. If the player is too far, I will have to implement some sort of penalty or some way to prevent the player from flying too far. I don't like those games that put invisible walls in front of you, but instead I would prefer to put something that will kill the player the farther it goes, like for example space radiation. So the longer the player stays in those areas, the faster the health of the ship decreases, so the player has the option to return back quickly. That will make it very difficult for the player to continue in that direction, so it gives the illusion of infinite space. Well, I have already used 2 hours of my time to design those ships and some ideas about the game. Now I need to go to the drawing board and complete the design of the enemies. Also thinking about enemies, I can add some kind of generic animation when enemies are hit with bullets, and I can make a very generic process to destroy them. So instead of having vanishing enemies when being destroyed, we can create a simple program that will break the sprites in pieces. So that can work for all enemies without me having to animate each one. So one thing that's extremely important is to make use of time in the best possible way. I don't want to release games once every few years, but once a month. So I just started working on the release of this game next week. So please share your comments below, help me grow this channel. With your support, we will make better games every month. See you next week. And before we finish, let's see what is this week's quest. If you like this video, click like and subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. See you next week.